Thanks, Sean. Good morning, everyone. So my presentation this morning is just to basically talk through our experience of coming from somewhere where we thought we had a fault level study. We thought we had a pretty good one on site and went through the electrical engineering control plan audit, stage 2, and probably through that realised where it actually was at, and then realised what we needed to do to get it up to scratch. So we'll run through that. So Wilpinjong coal mine. I want to look down here, it'd be easier. Out one of the Mudgee mines. We're sort of down the road from the Yulin complex and also our brothers next door at Moolarben. We're a Peabody owned open cut thermal mine, been there since about 2005, so relatively new, young coal mine I suppose, in relation to some of the cousins over in the valley and the like. About 600 permanent jobs, 200 specialists, general contractor positions, proved to mine up to 16 million tonnes of ROM. We rail about 12 every year. A lot of our coal, 25% of it, is actually used for New South Wales power generation. So one of the speakers there before spoke about turning lights on at home. Well, in some way or another, everyone's probably had some form of connection with Wilpinjong through that process. And then the rest of it we throw on the seaborne thermal market. Our pit is mined. We don't have any drag lines or shovels, no trailing cables out in the open cut. Our pit's mined by an excavator fleet. Our trucks, we have a majority Cat diesel trucks. We have MT 4400s floating around as well, a fleet of diesel electric trucks, but that's about it. The rest of it's fixed plant. When you see the next photo, it's a fairly low strip ratio, and it started off. I mean, the original comment that was made when Wilpinjong first started was that Wombats mined the first coal at Wilpinjong. And if you have a look, those diggers down the bottom, they're well and truly on coal there, and you can see the overburden. So it's pretty low strip ratio, which is why we don't have any of the bigger gear. It's done with the shovels and the trucks. And you'll see that next photo there is that's the main CHPP complex, I suppose, with the train loader, the wash plant, and all of the switch yards in there. But that's the majority of the fixed infrastructure that we've got. We have the original fault load study on site was for that area. We've got some, as the mine's expanded, we've also got some pre-start areas of where everyone used to start there. We've now got pre-start areas that, as the mine's spread out, we've built new pre-start areas and office buildings essentially in those different areas. And one of those is fed by generators, and then one of them is fed through a 22 kV feeder that comes in. So the mine's power reticulation, it's an incoming 66. We go into those two 10 MVA transformers. The mine was expanded in 2011, so the original 66 to 22 is on the right-hand side. When it was expanded, they put in a sister next door, and it feeds into a 222 switch rooms. It's got a bus tie between them, so we can run independently off either one of those. We only draw about 5.5 maximum, so it's pretty good from a maintenance point of view. I can isolate one complete side off, and then I've still got the other one there. So good backup there. So yeah, 22 will reticulate around site at 22. We've got some overhead power lines, a pretty small network of overhead power lines, predominantly through underground feeders through to the subs and MCCs, RMUs and that around the site. Several generator fed installations, so pumps, fuel farms, some start points like I said, and a lot of those were done from a point of where they actually exist, from a geography point of view, and one of the start points purely because that end of the mine will be mined out fairly quickly. So we put it on generator, get them in, get that area of the mine mined out, and then we'll move to the east. Move that down there. So there's also generator backup on a lot of the areas. So as I said, majority of the network is for Wilpinjong's all around that fixed plant installation. It's a fairly static setup. So we don't move. We're not moving transformers all the time. We're not doing anything like that. So as I stated, what sort of spoiled it for us was the stage 2 audit. That happened in August last year. John come out, we sat down, went through our protection study. As I said, I felt good before that audit. We had a protection study in place, albeit it was only for the CHPP area. It had been done in 2017, and one of the things I'll talk about in the presentation was prior to that, Wilpinjong had had a couple of different people involved. And Thies was the original miner, TSJV. Thies Sedgman built it, and then they mined it for 5 years. And a lot of that history, or a lot of that information, we didn't have anymore from it. So when Peabody took it over, so we recommissioned one in 2017 after the installation of a tailings filtration plant. But yeah, it wasn't complete for site by any means. It didn't take any of the generator fed installations in. It didn't take any of the 22 feeders into it or anything like that. We didn't have a lot of information on any of that stuff. So well, it was updated in 2019. We upgraded a pump. So like I said, I felt pretty good. We had it there. We provided that information, and it wasn't until we sat down with John that we probably got through discussions and through whatever, we got shown about where that actually, where that sat and how we could improve for site. So yeah, as I stated there, it highlighted deficiencies in the protection study that we had. So, as I stated, didn't cover all areas on site. New pre-start areas have been built as the mine expanded. Generator-fed installations weren't part. There was no, none of that had been done. There'd been some smaller fault load studies done when a lot of these areas were built, but they weren't part of the main bulk, and it was all very mixed match. They were in different locations, in different files, in different computers, in different here, there and everywhere, all over the place. It wasn't something central we could just stick our hands on and go, bang, there you go, there it all is. So the other one that it was too, and you'll see when I get further down to show you what we produce now, that the protection curves and the arc flow study was all that was provided from that file. So there were no fault or load flow single lines provided to site as part of that original study. And there'd been a lot of assumptions made in that study on cables, cable lengths, circuit breaker data, transformer fuse sizes, motor loading, efficiencies. There'd been, in the very start of that actual document, you can see there'd been a lot of assumptions that have been provided when that study had been done. So, and it only went down to the MCC level. It never went further. It never went down to the motor or the LCS level. It didn't go any further than just there. So obviously we were one of these 75 that received a notice, or a couple of notices. So I assume that with that many issued, I didn't get 75 of them. So there's obviously other ones in the room that were in the same boat when John came out. But the one we did get in regards to this was a 191, and so that was to expand the existing fault level study to include all sections of site and include all parts of the network. Pretty basic. Make sure it covers everything on your site. Clarify and eliminate as many assumptions. Prove what you've got. Have a look at what you've got and make sure that's what you've based it on. Obtain rating information for that equipment. That rating information does not currently exist. So if you've got something in the network or you're using it, you should know what fault level it's at, say an LCS switch, because some of the stuff out there is not provided. Review rating information obtained against the revised fault level study. So then have a look, once you've got your fault level study done, go and have a look to make sure your gear is actually good enough to handle what your fault levels are. So fair enough, pretty obvious, but pretty good. And then audit that protection settings. So we sat down, we said, righto, that's going to take a fair bit of work. 6 months, there should be plenty of time. How wrong we were. So work to do, lots of work to do. So as part of that, the decision was made to go back to the company that had done the original one for us. They had the file on site. They knew what they already had. It was a matter of updating that. And we had a good relationship with that company already on site. They were familiar with our infrastructure. They performed protection and high voltage equipment maintenance for us on site. We already had a good relationship with the people within that business, so it was a pretty obvious choice for myself. Meeting set up to discuss and work out a plan of what we were going to do and how we were going to achieve it, albeit in mind that we knew that we had a timeline based on the regulator notice. So I'll just go to the next slide. The challenges that we had. So one of the things when we contacted the company that we spoke to was their availability. Obviously, the regulator had been out doing these ECP audits with everyone else, and And so they were getting phone calls left, right and centre for exactly the same thing. Help, we need to get our fault load studies up to scratch. So yeah, look, and I understood that completely. So that was the reason I mentioned that is it was just it was another factor in time. We had the 6-month deadline, but yeah, their availability was where it was as well. One of the things to consider when we had to do it, we can only get access to the plant when it's on shutdowns, yeah? So our plant shuts down every 3 weeks around the CHPP, every 3 weeks in the main plant. The 2 crushing stations shut down every 5 weeks. So you can't really go and get settings and you can't really go and do audits and stuff unless it's shut down. So that was one of the restrictions that we had, that you can't get access to some of the equipment. The information, I spoke about that already. Not all the information from the original build, just what we didn't have it. We didn't have it anywhere. It wasn't in any of the files that we had or anything that had been left. It was so we sort of we quickly realised where we were going with it. And the other one was everybody already had a job. This was just another job that we had. You know, everyone was always really busy, and we had to sit down and then reprioritise where we were going to go for the next, what we thought, 6 months. So after we realised how little information we had, or what we did have, there'd been so many assumptions made, we realised we literally had to go and audit the whole site. So information gathering, cable schedules, as-builts, manufacturers' data, literally going and checking the cables, circuit breakers, motors, because we found some of the cable schedules and lengths that they'd used or assumed were wrong. We had to go and measure the cable lengths. Transformers, this 6-month deadline, we're already at about 3 months to go now, once we've even got to this stage. So we're starting to run out of time. I'm starting to think I'm ringing John. So then I quickly realised I needed some horsepower, and so this is where Basil comes up. So Basil's a graduate electrical engineer, first year, and this quickly became his major project for the year, which is why I've invited him to come down and tell his story a bit later with his experience through it. But it was really good, and I encourage anybody, if they've got a graduate on site and you've got to go through this process, get them to help you do the legwork, because there's so many boxes that it ticks for not only yourself but also for them in getting to know the networks, getting to know the sites, getting to know it. It's just a really beneficial project for them. So info gathering, again, all the single lines were confirmed or updated, because we're humans and not everything gets updated all the time from changes that have happened across site. So that had to happen before we could then provide them to start to build the study. So we developed new single lines. We didn't have them where they'd been modified and that process hadn't been followed through properly. Confirmed by physically checking each MCC switchboard installation across site. So cable size, again, things I spoke about, but it was physically going out there, not just relying on drawings, not relying on cable schedules, not relying on any of that. It was going out there and literally looking and taking photos. I think, Baz, you must have 5,000 different photos set up now of the different stuff that we've got. And again, we could only access that gear, a lot of it while we were shut down. And then eventually we just kept banging that through to the people that we used to help us put it together, and they put it in so SKM Power Tools is what they used, and we eventually got back version 1. I will make a point there that I had a phone call with John and explained that I grossly underestimated the time this was going to take, and if you didn't mind, I'd like an extension. That was the first one. Versions there were then checked, rechecked, checked, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. I don't know how many times we did that, but we had to. And then after a lot of back and forth, we finally got somewhere where we could start to rely on it. And I think in some sections of it, we're at version 7 of where our fault load study started from when we started. So if you have a look, I've just put this drawing in there. That was what we started with when we got it back originally from the consultant, and all that's just one of the single lines, but all of the greens are assumptions that were made in the first one. So where I was getting to, so everything in the green, as we said, that's just one of them, and we had about 25 of those, but they were all assumptions that had been made in the original study. So that's what we started with, and that was where we went, righto, start ticking them off and just start going around site, literally going through and auditing and start ticking them off. So as I said, we basically started again. We expanded it to everywhere across site. So and all the way down to the end. An arc flash study was done as part of it as well. It's part of the study. It's just part of it. We did find some defects, and when I say defects, there was probably nothing that was unsafe. It was just that there was a lot of stuff that could be improved, and a lot of arc flash levels that could be reduced, and a lot of protection that could be fixed up. So we went through that process, and now we're basically auditing what we've got back, and fixing that up as we go. We actually found some equipment that the fault levels weren't rated high enough for where they were actually in the when used. So some LCSs weren't rated, their fault levels weren't rated high enough. So it's something to go back and check. And the ones that weren't rated probably were ones that had been put in after, so they'd been replaced. And then obviously that part of it had never been checked when they were replaced, because the original build was fine. Anything that was original build is fine, but when someone's changed it and put an aftermarket, so to speak, one in, or not the original build, they were the areas that we found problems with. Yeah, one of the other things we found was that we found some circuit breakers, and we run Schneider NSXs and their motor control stuff. People had put the wrong thermal magnetic protection and stuff on the bolted on the bottom of the circuit breaker and whether they'd done that because the breaker had failed and that was all that we had on site as a spare part or whatever, I'm not sure, but that was some of the stuff that we found, that there was it was just a really healthy process to be able to do that audit and then go, shit, didn't even know that existed, you know what I mean, didn't know it was out there. And yes, it should have come up on the 3 monthly inspections, yes, it should have come up on all this other stuff, but it didn't. So we this is where we've captured it. So that's probably makes me feel a lot better, put it that way, that I know that we've got it now. So the original study was 260 pages, was one document. The new one now, and that's not bullshit, it's nearly 1,000 pages. That's that same document picture that I showed you before with all the green assumptions, and that's where we're at now. So that's all been fixed up. We've proven everything that's on there, and that's where we got to. I spoke before, we only had the curves and the arc flash study. Now we've got single lines for current, load flow currents, we've got max fault loads, min fault loads, we've got load flow power, obviously coordination curves, protection curves, the arc flash study. One of the biggest learnings I spoke about earlier that we had in it as well was our where our information was all over the bloody place. Like in computers, someone else's computer, this guy had it, it was in here, it was on this W drive, it was over there, and some of the headings for it was just like, it took days to try and find stuff. And then this guy, oh no, I know where that is, and he'd have it hidden under Tom's folder, this build, this da-da-da, and it was just a rabbit's warren. So what we've actually got now is we've got it in one spot, and you can see there that on the left-hand side of that is the fault load study folder, and where it exists for the different areas across site. And then if you open those up, well, then you can access each of the different areas for those. What else? Learning. So not a quick process. As I said, I underestimated the work that it would take and where we were at. So 6-month original timeline. I asked for another 6 months. I got to the end of that and went, shit, we're still not done. Can I get another 3 months? Yes, you can, but it better be the last time you ask. I said, right, no worries. So we did, but we got there. We were all but there in that time, but that was where we were. So one of the learnings, as I said, and it's probably what I try and get to the room, the original protection study had been completed and taken for granted that it was fine and it was all right. And you know, the couple of things that we did go and have a look at, we found out where we're at. But go back, have a look at it. Have a look at what you've got on site, especially, like I said, our site started in about 2004, 2005, so it's not very old. There's a lot of older places out there that you know, you probably need to go back and just have a sticky beak at. The fact that there were 75 notices handed out, I'd say that, yeah, we've all got work to do in that case. Too many assumptions were made in the original study. As I said, there was just way too many stuff. Once we punched the right information in, now we've got all of these defects we have to go and fix and fix up. And I can't, I can't recommend more if you haven't got a graduate engineer, get one to help on this process and do the legwork, because there's so much of it. There literally is so much work to do in regards to it. And I didn't go and become an expert in SKM power tools because that would have added another 6 months to it, you know what I mean? Like there's so much to do. So, right, so as I said, get a graduate. You need one if you're going to go down this path, in my opinion. So Peabody runs a graduate program. The guys do a 2-year stint with us, 1 year open cut, 1 year underground. Baz has done his year of open cut with me now. He'll head off to Wade at Metrop and he'll go do that. And you can see that we take them on in mining engineers, geotechs, electrical, mechanical. We are taking a mechatronics guy on next year. He'll come and work with me. So we'll see where that takes us. But yeah, looking forward to that. So what I've done as part of this presentation, because Baz put so much work into it, I actually asked him to talk about his journey for a couple of minutes and just where he's been at. So I'll leave you with it.
Thank you, Dave. Good morning, all. I'm really grateful to be here today presenting in front of a group of experienced professionals. So as Dave told, my name is Basil and I'm a graduate electrical engineer in Wilpinjong, and this is my first mine site, and I'm having a great exposure over there, and I think the journey is going so far so good. And one of the major projects that I was dealing with was a fault load study, for the site, the whole site. And as part of the fault load study, I do need to analyze the single line diagrams, collect data, update the single line diagrams, and sometimes I need to create new single line diagrams. And I also got an opportunity to work with our third-party vendors. It was really a great exposure to me. Dealing with the third-party vendors helped me to improve my communication skill, my collaborative skill, and it also helped me to gain a lot of knowledge, technical knowledge. And reviewing the reports and making comments on those reports and discussions which were going on, that reports were really insightful. So it helped me to gain more knowledge on different types of protections that we use in our site, different types of electrical equipments, electrical controls that we are using in our site. So it was really good exposure. And another important area of study was the circuit grading. So the project introduced me to learn more about circuit grading and the importance of circuit grading. It introduced me to the time current curves and its applications. So it helped me to know what all protection should be there for a proper working of a protection in our site. And as part of the study, I had to learn SOMU software. It's a software that we use in our site in order to take values out from motor controllers. It's not just taking the values out, it will be able to provide us with more details about the fault which happened on that motors. So it was really a good exposure for me. As a graduate electrical engineer, it was really a great exposure. I got some good hand-on experience, and it helped me to improve my technical and soft skills. And I take this opportunity to thank Dave, who has been a great mentor and great support throughout the process. And I thank you all for giving your time in order to share my experience so far. And I'm looking forward to learn from you all. Thank you.
Thanks, Buzz. I've just got a final thought, and it's probably one based, it was done by Henry Potosky, I think I got his name right. He's a failure analysis engineer, an American, but it's just a really good saying for me, especially as far as where we thought we were as engineers and site with our fault load study. But we're all here to help each other, and we all learn from each other, and I think this is just a really good saying, especially around the course of, say, the last couple of days we've had together. But engineers are not superhuman. They make mistakes in their assumptions, in their calculations, in their conclusions. That they make mistakes is forgivable, and that they catch them is imperative. Thus, it is the essence of modern engineering not only to be able to check one's own work, but also have one's work checked and to be able to check the work of others. If you think about it, that's what the regulator's doing for us. So they helped me, and now my site's got a decent fault load study. So, yeah. Thanks, everyone.